You go by Ken or Kenneth?
Ken, man.
All right.
Kenneth sound like I'm in trouble. Like, Ken, oh shit, what I do?
Mic check, mic check.
1, 2, yes, sir.
All right. All right, everybody. So welcome to the Finding Balance podcast. I am your host, Dr. Adrian Mesa, and we are here on behalf of AMP Mental Health, who is our proud sponsor. It's my company, so hey, what are we going to do? I'm here with a special guest, Kenn Coats, CEO of KENTECH. And actually, it's cool that we are connecting here because Ken and I met in the gym.
Yeah.
We met at Anatomy right here in Coconut Grove. And we've had some pretty cool conversations where he doesn't realize that he has not only inspired me, but taught me and helped me in my leadership role here at AMP as a CEO. He's given me some tips on hiring, on firing, on evaluations. And this all happened just in a jacuzzi.
Yes.
Just having small talk. So welcome, Ken. Welcome.
Man, pleasure to be here, bro. Yes, pleasure to be here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that you're here because actually just yesterday you said something in the locker room where you mentioned social connection
Yes.
and having human connection. You said, man, I'm trying to be really mindful of having better human connections.
Yes.
And I heard that and I said, that's absolutely true. It's so hard right now, the way that the world we live in is so fast paced, being the CEO of a company, being a father, a family man, and whatever other roles you play.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden trying to find the time to establish like solid friendships with people.
Yeah.
What was it you said? You said something to me about relationships.
Yeah, man. I was saying I'm trying to be more intentional regarding connecting with people. I think pre-COVID or during COVID, we lost that connection. And it was cool for a minute to be isolated. I think it allowed people to connect different and understand themselves a little bit more, to be able to sit in that silent space. But now on the other side of it, just being more intentional. My understanding, for my own selfish reasons, is it helps with anti-aging, right? So that's my deal, is to be around as long as I can. So beyond just working out, and eating healthy, relationships and connections with others is just that vital, just as vitally important. So my deal, because I always thought about it, because you mentioned, because of our busy day, we think it's just downtime. Like, man, I'm slacking off, if I'm talking with friends or whatever. But it really helps me personally in not realizing that's what you want. That's the purpose, is not to just think that you're slacking off, but that time intentional is a time well spent. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that I mentioned to you yesterday was, right now I'm just at the stage in my life where I really need to connect with people that give me value.
Yes.
I feel like I'm spending most of my day trying to put out value to others, and I really need to have these smaller or these day-to-day connections with people where I want to establish a friendship with, let's say, another dude or a woman, doesn't matter who, but I need to have some sort of value that comes from that person. And I'm not saying monetary value, but I'm saying maybe wisdom that person imparts on me, maybe about being a father, maybe about their life experience, or maybe about running a company.
Yeah.
Because that's the stage of my life that I'm in right now. And I feel like I've never really had a mentor.
Yeah.
The mentors that I've had have been through podcasts, through books, or just kind of watching people from a distance and saying, oh, the way this person leads is the way I want to lead. Yeah. Or the way this person leads is not the way I want to lead, right? So, but I've never had a direct mentor. So I'm trying really hard and being intentional about just engaging with people who are probably maybe a little bit older than me, or just have more experience, whether it is running a company or in whatever facet of life that they're in. Yeah.
Because the craziest thing, the most important roles that you have, first of being a father or a mother, those don't come with any instructions. So it's like, one of the biggest damn roles you would ever play in your life doesn't have any kind of, you don't go to school for it. So you just figure it all out. So I always find it's best to, like you mentioned, to pair with people. So I'm constantly looking to learn about business, about being a better father, about my health, about eating right, anything that I want to know. In fact, I think Will Smith said it's two things a human must learn. One is running, supposedly because it builds endurance, right? He said he would probably die on a treadmill before he let somebody beat him. You know, he'll literally just die. And then the second is being resourceful, because anything that you want in life, someone has probably done it before. So if you just learn where to get that information and be clear about, okay, I need to learn this. I mean, it was similar to like, I think Elon Musk mentioned he learned about building rockets by watching YouTube and reading books, right? It wasn't like anything major. He went to school, of course, for engineering, but he learned these things by just first setting it out that I need to learn these things and then knowing that the resources are out there somewhere. So that's pretty much been my key to life. Anything that I want to learn, I try to find a model or someone I can mimic. And it's not that they need to train you, but you, as you mentioned, you just need to learn through their experience, either good or bad. And so that's.
Who have been some mentors who have, like, I guess, influenced you or impacted your life?
Let me see, on the business side, I love.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's great. On the business side, I love Steve Jobs. He's massive for me. You know, I just love his idea and his imagination about pushing things forward. I mean, Elon Musk, of course, Jay-Z, you know, coming from the hood, and and having to be like a unicorn in this game of business, because there's really no blueprints for, unfortunately, sometimes people of color. So people like that. Father-wise, I mean, believe it or not, Grant Cardone, he's actually a client of ours. I learned business stuff from him, but even being a father, I watch how he is with his kids and how he programmed his life, being a late stage dad too. I think he had his kids at 50 and learning how to incorporate it. He didn't, he was on the road. I think he mentioned 280 times days out of a year. And like, man, when I have kids, I can't be doing this. And so I need to, and I don't want to give up my business. So I need to have things work around my life as opposed to thinking they're siloed. I do business and then I have my kids or my family life over here. So I admire how he's been able to collaborate and bring them both together, right? When he's with his kids, he's, doing business. He's teaching them business. He's not on the road. He brings business to him. He built, his business to surround him. He doesn't have to go out and get it. He's created such a marketing buzz. People come to him now, inbound marketing, if you will. So I take those things like, man, this is possible. In fact, we had a training session and he mentioned that, like, you just need to find a model. Anything is possible. If somebody else did it, you can do it. We were talking about where we want to take our company. It's like, well, shit, who's doing it now? Okay, well, we can do it too. Well, it's just that simple.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up thinking that they have to reinvent the wheel, and the wheel's already been made. So all you have to do is follow the model and see how you can implement what you have going on, and how do you make it look similar to theirs, or take what you can from theirs and incorporate it into what you're doing.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Same with Steve Jobs. He did the same. He didn't invent the mouse. He didn't invent like the whole kind of revolutionary of computers. I think Xerox was doing it. And I think that, what's the word? Great. Let's see. Good artists, they say borrow, but great artists steal, or something to that effect. So meaning like, yeah, there's nothing new.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to go out and find that model and mimic.
Yeah. This company, actually, a lot of the things that I'm doing here are just, there's other companies just like it here in South Florida. Actually, one of the people who, again, was a mentor, but from a distance, was my old boss. Her name is Dr. Dovina Thomas. And she's up in Fort Lauderdale, like off of Sheridan. And I worked for her. It's actually a Black-owned practice.
Wow.
She's a psychiatrist. And first I thought that model was interesting, right? Because I said, I didn't even think about race or this color of your skin, but using that as a marketing tool. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how people would feel about me saying I have a white-owned practice. But
exactly. Good point.
I don't think that works.
Yeah.
But I understood what she was doing, because she was just trying to use her culture and her upbringing to find support in the community, and also to bring awareness to mental health, which is actually oftentimes shied away from in the underserved communities.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I learned a lot just from watching her, the moves she was making, the people she was hiring. The nonprofit that she built on the side to also, I mean, it's to do multiple things, right? It's to help in whatever way you want to help, but also to help offset taxes. So it's a win-win.
Yes.
but it's really cool to see her and what she built. And again, so when I got here, I kind of understood that model, and I said, well, what's going to be different? I remember 10 years ago, or has it been 10 years? Or at least 8 years ago, she had a podcast, and it was just, it was her cell phone, but she would be on it constantly on YouTube. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, what is she thinking she's going to do on YouTube? Right? She's not getting that many views.
Yeah.
But then after a while, I was like, oh, wait, this is picking up. Oh, this is just another way to communicate to her audience. So it was just a matter of her putting herself out there without fearing judgment. She was herself. She is herself.
Oh, wow.
She's very authentic. Yeah, she's a cool lady. Military veteran as well, just like me. Okay. So I just found a lot of similarities, but I was never, I would ask her questions, but some people aren't going to reveal everything that they're doing, which is fine. I respect it. But I learned a lot just from watching her, and I respect her a lot from what she built. And honestly, this practice mirrors her practice a lot.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. What they say, imitation is the best flattery or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we borrow from each other. I mean, I come from the creative realm. Also, people who inspire me are the Beatles, okay. Prince, right? My background is music. And so to me, they were unique. But if you look behind even some of your biggest artists, they are built on somebody else who did it before them, like Prince, it was James Brown, Jimi Hendrix type stuff. I even say David Bowie. But there's nothing new under the sun. Unfortunately, there's just different reiterations and different ways to angle it, to get something out. It's this famous business guy. His name is Peter Thiel. He had mentioned that there's no new ideas for businesses, So his book was about how these companies in Silicon Valley become unicorns like Amazon. And, they're really not doing anything new. They're just kind of repackaging things. So is there a possibility to get a patent, like you have something totally new? I mean, I don't think having a new wheel, so to speak, is out there. They're just reiterations of old stuff.
Got you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like what Netflix is just Blockbuster on your TV.
Stream, exactly.
Yeah, stream right on your TV. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to rent anything.
Yes.
And so they didn't reinvent movies.
Exactly.
I mean, now they're making movies, but the original idea was just that.
Convenience and yeah.
So tell me, I'm going to read real quick. Here it says, this is a quick bio that I found on Kenn. This is entrepreneur, licensed private detective, and founder of KENTECH, a unique global investigative firm with a diverse clientele that reads like a who's who of the world, from media moguls to the largest police agencies in the U.S., including federal government agencies, entire nations, universities, and even battered women's shelters and children's schools. KENTECH works with the world's most famous as well as the world's most anonymous. Born in Chicago, Kenn is a man of many hats, father of three, musician, a DJ, and mentor to aspiring entrepreneurs, me being one of them. When he's not globetrotting for KENTECH, you'll find him enjoying family time with his family and children, embodying a life that blends entrepreneurial pursuit with personal fulfillment and community contribution. It's beautiful, man. So a couple of things that stood out to me. First and foremost, I don't know if you're allowed to disclose, but who's the most famous person that you've had to work with?
Do work with? I just say business. We've done business, not personal stuff. I can reveal Grant Cardone.
Oh, okay.
He's one. We've done.
Actually, I was going to, how did you link with Grant Cardone? Because I know that you're doing business with Grant Cardone. Yes. You actually run his
background investigations for his employees. That's how he's able to 10X. He needed a company that understood that, but also, make sure it's safety and security. But man, it was persistent and pursuit. I didn't know about who he was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And my wife actually introduced me to him. She was reading his 10X book. And she was just hung up on this thing about him telling business owners, don't be a little bitch, or something like that. And I'm like, who is this damn guy you keep reading with this damn funny quote or whatever? And so later, as I was looking to build my own sales team, I found him on YouTube. Start watching, like, oh, he got some very braggadocious, but I got into him, and the more and more I listened to him, I got to see other facets of him. And then we attended, I think, one of his marketing workshops, and I think I just put it out there. He was talking about dreaming big, touching it and feeling it, or something like, man, you got to go for your market and do this. And so I'm like, hey, one of my dreams is to do business with you. I put him on the spot, and he was like, okay, get his info, right? And so I followed, and I just persistently followed up. It took about a year, and we finally closed it. So yeah, And so we've been connected, doing business, taking parts of his stuff, and, getting business ideas from him, as well as to looking to kind of solidify our business to see how we can add value to him as well. So, yeah.
And that's pretty cool because he's not, he might be a huge name down here in South Florida because his headquarters are in Aventura, but he's a big name, I want to say nationwide and maybe even globally.
Yeah, he is.
And especially if you're in the real estate market,
yes,
you know exactly who Grant Cardone is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the great thing I like about his diverse ability he has about 25 companies now under him.
Wow.
And his ability to grow each one, 10x each one. He start with no money, understanding what's first, service, being able to service to deliver your product, but then marketing. And I thought it was sales. I was like, no, marketing. You got to get out of obscurity. People need to know who you are. And as you mentioned, like the doctor, the podcast, there's an audience for everybody. I think as P.T. Barnum mentioned, he says it's a food for everybody. But there's a market for anything. Anything you want to sell, or you offer, someone is interested in it. So and I believe the digital social media platforms have made it much easier to really segment and find that audience. Unlike before, it used to just be traditional media, TV, magazines. Hopefully it'll come across them, but now you get that statistics in real time, like who's looking at it, how old are they, where are they coming from, what time they listen, where did the engagement increase, where did it decrease, right? So all this statistics you can use to really sharpen your message. So
what are you doing right now for KENTECH in terms of getting yourself out of obscurity? I know you guys been around for, I think you told me how long?
2012.
So you're looking at 10 plus years of running a business.
Yes.
All right. So what have you done, I guess, to get your name out there a little bit more?
And that's a great point. And that's we had a business tune-up session with Grant a week ago. And that was our deal. We were used to wallow in the fact that we were our client's best kept secret. So meaning, working with all these fancy law enforcement agencies. I mean, we work as high as the federal government with Department of Homeland Security, all these different fancy complex investigations, they rely on us. But at the same time, we were in obscurity. No one knew about us. No one still knows about us. And so we made a pact this year to really go out to the market a little bit more. We love kind of being in the shadows, so to speak, for our clients. Yeah. And we would grow through referrals in traditional market, building relationships, but really going to the market and say, we're a private detective and we do this, and this is how we can help. We've been pushing towards that this year. In fact, I brought on a new sales and marketing team. We're still hiring right now to really push into the market. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Any specific targets in terms of what market you want to get into?
Yeah, we think there's a need. What we statistically been seeing post-COVID is the need for families to build personal teams. And so what we find, unfortunately, for women, is the most that they are burdened with a lot of the family care while also working, right? They should not have to give up their job. And so we've been looking at to teach or to help women who may have older parents or kids like my wife and I had, how to vet a nanny like a private investigator. Like, what questions should you be asking? How can you validate this person should be around your family, right? Because the stakes are much more higher than, say, working for a company. For companies, we used to do background checks to, the whole deal was, workplace violence, but everybody's working at home now, so it's not about checking to see if the boogeyman is working in your cubicle. Is right now, like, I got this person coming in to clean my home. I have this person watching my elderly dad. I have this person watching my kids or dropping off my kids. What do I know about them, really? And so that's our goal, is to create content that will be helpful for families in this post-pandemic generation to find out how to vet like a PI, Yeah.
You sold me already.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
Yeah, because I want to know my daughter's soccer coaches.
Yes.
I want to know if she's doing, personal training with somebody. Who is this dude?
Right.
I want to know, if my daughter was younger, like, who are the nannies that are working at this agency? I want to know.
Yes.
And am I getting those answers? Am I trusting this agency? And who are they using?
Exactly.
And that's when I step in and say, you should see KENTECH.
Exactly. See us.
I think you're definitely onto something because there's a huge need.
Yes.
to know. I mean, there's a lot of sick people out there.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to identify them, especially, like you said, if they're coming into our homes or taking care of our kids or around our families, period.
Yes. Yeah, as you mentioned, mental health has been a thing now. It's been going up, post-pandemic for, many reasons. But they're then out in the workforce and they're working. And unfortunately, what we're finding in this remote workplace, at least what I'm hearing from our HR people, the companies we work for, mental wellness is like their top priority right now because of the isolation, because workers are not understanding how to break between work-life balance. And then they're just kind of in their own echo chamber. If they're downloading social media and listening to all the news and you're sitting in your room trying to work, it's just, crazy. And so
you're living out of your room, but you think the world is full of chaos. But
exactly.
Meanwhile, you step outside and everything's okay.
Exactly.
Just the media is portraying this war zone that's going on. And don't get me wrong, there's pockets of places where there's bad things going on. But I want to say, at least where we live here in Miami, I mean, you can go outside and usually most people are pretty positive, besides for some road rage. But for the most part, there's no war zone going on.
Exactly.
There's no murderers walking down the street.
Yes.
People are obeying the law and just trying to live their day-to-day lives, and they're pretty respectful. But yeah, I think you're 100% right, where a lot of people are just living this extremely isolated life, lacking social support. And I think that's why social connections like this, although we're airing it, right, and we're going to put it on YouTube, and wherever else we're going to put it on Spotify, having these sorts of conversations, just sitting down with somebody and exchanging ideas is so important, but it's become so rare. Right? So if I, whether it's a man or a woman, right, that sits across from me in this podcast, if these cameras weren't here and these mics were here and weren't here, and I said, hey, Ken, at 11:30 a.m. on Wednesday, let's go have coffee, sit down, and talk about life for an hour.
Right.
Chances are you're gonna be like,
something came up, man.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's interesting.
That's
So this has become my life hack, where I want to have these conversations. I want to be able to pick people's minds, and I want to make connections, so that my friendship with someone can go a little bit beyond just the, hey, what's up in the gym? Hey, good morning. Hey, how you doing? Hey, working hard. Cool. And then all superficial.
Yes.
I want it to be a little bit more profound. Jesse, who was on here, like, now I got a different view of him in terms of what kind of a father he is. Business wise, he's linking me with companies that do virtual assistants from the Philippines that are much more cost effective. Leadership styles that I've learned from you. There's just a lot that you can gain from these social connections, but like you said earlier, we tend to dismiss them a lot.
Yes, so vitally important. And it's weird, kind of on subject.
I'm a little bit offended, by the way, that you wouldn't go have a coffee with me at 11:30, but I'll let it go.
Let's talk about life. I got that one thing, man, I got to do will come up. But and that's the deal about humanity. I was watching the movie Soul. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
I saw Soul, yeah.
And one of the questions they ask, profound questions, is like, what is the meaning of purpose of life? And me and my wife were debating. I'm like, shit, I didn't get it. What did they say? Because that was at the end.
Yeah.
And it seems like the purpose of life is to be an inspiration to others, that your life is an inspiration to others, good, better, and different. It doesn't have to be all positive. In fact, your personal brand, to me, what I've learned is three things. One is who you are. So I can say I'm Kenn Coats, 51, black male, born in the south side of Chicago, whatever. My accolades, Inc. 5,000, 3-time winner on, fastest growing company, whatever. All these, superficial things. And then the third is like my failures, right? Like, I was divorced once. My first business failed, in 2 or 3 years. But that becomes a person's brand, which is an inspiration to others, right? So it's the things that you failed at, the things that you've done great at, and just who you are. And I think it's important as humanity to share those things. And that's the beautiful thing I do love about YouTube, is that, you get to kind of have an intervention, as you mentioned, just having a conversation about like, oh man, I can recognize, okay, it's just not me, going through that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I put my vulnerabilities out there all the time.
Right.
And a lot of people, even here in the office, some of the girls are like, I tell them, I'm like, don't let these things have power over you.
Yes.
Like you have to stop fearing the judgment of others, because the chances are your story and whatever struggle you're going through right now is going to end up inspiring somebody else.
Yes.
And they're like, their rebuttal is, Adrian, not everybody doesn't fear judgment like you. Like, so they don't want to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
You mentioned, how old were you when you went through your divorce? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, not a problem. What was I? 30? Let me see. 2004. Yeah,
That was a while ago.
Know. Yeah, that was a while ago.
All right. So 2004.
Right out of high school,
How did that affect you?
It actually put me, I think it was a bane and a blessing at the same time, because I was, naive. I got married right out of like college, from my high school sweetheart. So I haven't had an opportunity to experience relationships and understand. I just like, man, this is the one, I guess. Yeah. Right.
Here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And then unfortunately at those years in your early, late teens and 20s, you're still developing. And so unfortunately at the end, we were just totally, not compatible. Yeah. Right. So it was like, oh my God, this is so obvious. Right. This is how I think about stuff. This is how you think about stuff. So, but we had a child. So that was the deal, is that, the whole child, I didn't want to bring my daughter into like a what I call, divorce.
Yeah, of course.
I was, raised by a single mom myself. So, that was the only challenge I think I felt, but for the better, it was massive, because I knew I had this fire. I was just working corporate. I was corporate, working in the suburbs. I was probably about 100, 200 pounds more, right? Because I was commuting every day. It was a pretty...
Wait, you were 200 pounds heavier than you are right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, you just told me you were 230 pounds.
Yeah. I'm sorry. About 300. I was almost damn near 300. Yeah. That's too much. Not 130. Yeah. So I'm sorry. About
that's
almost,
okay.
But big as hell.
Yeah.
And just unhealthy, and just doing a corporate thing and life in the suburb. It wasn't a life. It wasn't a life whatsoever. And so that was the blessing part of it, is that I, jumping back off and basically resetting your life, it put me on a trajectory like, man, what's possible? I got a clean slate. How do I do this better? And so that then put me into being an entrepreneur, because the thing is, what really pushed me, my why was because of my daughter. I didn't want to be a 9-to-5 weekend dad. I'm like, shit, I got to create my own path so I can spend time with her. So, it's taking those things that are, unfortunate, and basically being able to make a 180. And so that was my deal. So it propelled me to be successful in an entrepreneur, I would never go back to that life in a million goddamn years. Yeah.
So. And I guess how did you? Obviously, you turned it around, right? You took this bad situation and you made something out of it. You sought the entrepreneurial route to create more time for yourself, to invest more time in your daughter.
Yeah.
But how was that immediate aftermath? Like, what were some of the struggles mentally, financially, and even just like? I'll just tell you a little bit. I went through the same thing, I remember feeling I went to therapy, and I felt as though I was a failure as a father.
Right, okay.
Because I was no longer there for her day after day after day. And Jesse and I spoke about this as well, where it was weird because it was a reset, and it also allowed us some time for ourselves again to kind of regroup. But then when we would have our kids around, we felt like we were just even more invested. Did you experience something similar to that?
And then more invested in the kids.
Yeah, the kid.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the deal. I mean, we're still good friends. There's no animosity with my baby mama.
With the baby mama?
Yeah. So,
shout out to all the baby mamas out there.
Baby mamas, post, it can have, you can still be, cordial.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean... Yeah, our deal, we were both, mature enough to understand, it's whatever, but let's do whatever we can do for our daughter at the time. Awesome. And make sure that, she's not lacking as much, right? So spending time, we were open. Okay, I got her, we had no custody issues, anything like that. So knock on wood, as my cousins say, when I was going through it, because like you say, it's like, oh, it was just the world caving in.
Of
on
course,
them, right?
yeah. It feels like it's the end.
Yeah. I mean, you literally, being with a person, anyone for any long period of time, you literally feel like a spirit or soul drop out of you. You feel dead inside. I don't know what that is psychologically, but just being connected to anyone and then to be separated either through death or divorce or whatever, it's a death that I believe you could experience.
Yeah, there's still a grieving process for sure. It takes a lot of people. Almost had a friend of mine who went through a pretty bad divorce. I won't even disclose any details of it, but she called me when she was going through it, and she said, "How long does it take for me to get over this? I just want to go to sleep and wake up for this to be gone." And I was like, "It'll probably be like 2 years before you feel like yourself again."
Yeah.
And she said, "There's no way."
Mm-hmm.
And like 3 months later, she's like, "This is a fucking roller coaster." She's like, "I felt good for a week, but now I'm down again." I'm like, "It's gonna take a little while. Like you're gonna have your ups, but then all of a sudden that reality of what happened is gonna come crashing back, and you're still grieving the loss of this relationship, and that's okay. Doesn't matter how difficult it was or what a quote unquote asshole he was to you. You're still grieving the loss of this thing that you had a lot of hope for. So it's just interesting that we want it quick. We want it to be done with.
And that's a crazy thing because what you told her, that's what my lawyer told me, and I didn't want to believe it. So it'll take about 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, shit, that's fuck, right? Yeah. And I didn't want to believe that, but it's literally about that long.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of your biggest failures, and you mentioned, I guess, your first company failing.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely.
Because I think there's a lot of learning lessons to get from some of these failures, and I think that people put failure up on a pedestal as well. But then there's so much that comes from those failures that we can learn from and grow from.
Yeah, and what turned my idea around about failure was Silicon Valley. Their mantra is fail fast. So it's not like you're gonna inevitably fail, but just fail quick.
Fail
just
fast,
get it
fail
over.
often.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, my understanding, when VCs are looking to invest in a founder, their deal is like, well, how many companies have you fucked up before? Right? They want to know, right? It's not like, because I don't want to hear about. But for me, my first entrepreneur endeavor was it's called Arrest Free, restfree.com. And my whole goal was, this was like it was after I left corporate, but my goal was to help people who had records, like, victimless crimes, offenses, misdemeanors, get it expunged. Because what I seen is the market opportunity was 1 out of 32 Americans have an arrest record or been arrested before. But unfortunately for Black males, while I was in Chicago, it was 1 out of 3. And what I was finding is that really prevented.
So say that again, 1 out of 3?
Yeah.
African Americans in Chicago.
Well, the U.S.
And U.S.
So you get 3 brothers and goddamn somebody got a record.
I'm gonna run that test.
Right. Like, which one of you bugs? Yeah, unfortunately. And so what I seen was it was preventing pursuit of happiness. So not only could you, would block employment if you run a background check, but if you were trying to get education, if you had a certain felony records, you couldn't get a grant for travel. If you were trying to travel to like Canada, you got a felony record, they wouldn't let you in. For licensing, to get like a barber license if you had a felony record. So it was beyond just employment, but it was about the pursuit of happiness. And it was like creating this, what I called a scarlet letter on people's backs. Not only that, you couldn't vote in certain states. Like Illinois, you could, like once you were out of jail, your voting rights were restored. But like, I think here in Florida and Texas, places like that, felony conviction, you lose your rights to vote. I believe. I think it's still a law. I'm not a lawyer. But, and so I was like, damn, this is rough. So I was like, what can be done about it? And I heard about this process. It's called expungement. If you are qualified, mainly there are victimless offenses. So these are like caught with, smoking weed, reckless driving, which is maybe it started as a DUI, but then they charge us reckless driving, or all these things that were non-victim, but they were these scarlet letters. And so I created a way online. A person go online, get the records, get their paperwork filled out, pull their record, and have it submitted to the courthouse to file for this expungement. It was like a TurboTax, if you will, that asks questions about it and all that. And so my goal was like, man, I'm gonna help 1 million people to get this thing done. And the more and more I put out there, it was certainly a great value that was needed, but people didn't have money because they didn't work.
Yeah, so these are because you're targeting the
Targeting-
population. You're targeting the population who can't work because they have a record.
Yes.
And so you're trying to build a business off of people with no money.
Exactly. So I missed that part. Like, oh damn, okay, they need money. But I end up trying it as a nonprofit, and trying to work with nonprofits, getting grants, and that didn't quite happen. I think this was around the recession time, 2008, when I start pivoting there. And then I finally sat down with a business owner. I'm like, man, what am I doing wrong? Just feeling defeated. I put all my life savings in this damn thing, getting this website built. He said, let me tell you something, little blood. Best thing you can do for poor people is not be one yourself. And I'm like, okay, because I'm broke as shit, about to get evicted out my house, and like what I do. And so, but that changed my trajectory. I'm like, okay, it's similar to like being on an airplane, like put your mask on first before try saving others. And so I'm like, okay, I was just out there, with a bleeding heart, just trying to help the world, right? And I gotta help myself first. So that was my, it was my lesson, and it was heartbreak because I think I was doing it, believing in it for 2 to 3 years. Like, damn it, this is gonna be the year. I'm gonna figure it out, right? I'm gonna figure out the way to, And I made, money. I jokingly say I made more money than Microsoft in their first year. I think Microsoft made like $15,000. Bill Gates, I made like $30,000 or something, And like, but yeah, it was rough.
What did you learn from that failure?
Man, I learned about market positioning, right? Like at the end of the day, like you say, just because there's a need, an awesome need, you still, can they pay? Are they willing to pay? So that becomes a checklist. Okay, there's a need because there's a lot of unfulfilled needs, and it's a reason, right? And it's probably because the money at the end of the day is not there. And so that was my
Because the people with money will just pay for a lawyer to expunge it and just move on with their lives.
Exactly. Yeah, and I was getting some of those people, right? Because I was connecting with some very fancy schools, and they had people with that challenge that were in the health field, was going to graduate, but they were having problems with job placement. In fact, I ended up building a second business around it called College Screen. And once I kind of figured that deal out, that colleges were willing to pay at least for the background check. I couldn't help them with the expungement, but it's like, man, we like your mission. These students, before they, do their internship at a hospital, we need to check them out, drug tests and all that stuff. So can you do that? So I'm like, I can do that first part. I can't help. I can, give them to resources that can help them. But to make matters compound, goddamn it, the issue, not only was I making money, but then I got alerted by the Attorney General that they were gonna, I had the unauthorized practice of law. So meaning giving these forms out online was considered illegally practicing law, even though I put them up on like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to help the community. But I guess some lawyer, I was encroaching on their business. They were doing expungements, and they dropped a dime on.
Of course.
So it was a crazy ride. So I'm like, poor. And then I got a goddamn Attorney General sending me a letter like, you have to come in. And the great thing of it, University of Chicago, one of my partners, they had a law school that I was working with, and it was called Institute for Justice for Entrepreneurs, or something to that effect. And they swarm in with their team of lawyers and like,
and took care of you.
Yeah. So they was like, because they fight for things like that in terms of entrepreneurs trying to start a business, taking cases across the country regarding that. So I would be ever in depth to University of Chicago. You guys out there help save my ass that day, that year. So yeah,
they saved you. How much money do you think they saved? At least 50 grand.
At least.
Yeah.
Because I'm poor. I'm dealing with like I say, about to be homeless, and Attorney General like, yo, you gonna have to pay fines and all this stuff, God. And I'm like, yeah. So, but yeah.
So do you still do the background screenings for any colleges? Because when I went to school, I remember as I was going into the clinical rotations, whenever I would go to the hospital setting, it was extensive background checks, urine drug screens.
Yes.
So it was, you still do that?
Yeah. In fact, we just picked up a big contract in Baltimore. We're working with a big university there. But we still do the screening, as you mentioned, either for the health students or what we find now are universities, because of the concern around safety. They're starting their own police forces. And so we're being brought in to help stand up police forces for our universities, like, the big Ivy League or the big ones who have a lot of money, right?
Yeah, they have their own on-campus police force.
Yeah, that are sworn as opposed to like security guards. And so, it's, we still do those.
Okay, yeah. So some of the things that were birthed from that former business still exist today.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And it sounds like there's still decent revenue streams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the deal. Like going through it was not fun, but as you mentioned, the aftermath, like what became of it, that's so true that, the business model still exists a little bit.
Where did you get the courage, the chutzpah, the balls to start again and start another business? Because a lot of people fail and they say, you know what, let me just tuck my tail and go back to the corporate world.
Right.
Just get another job.
It's so crazy, man. I don't know if I can pull it up, but I ended up getting up because I was in corporate IT.
Okay.
And I remember saying to myself, I'm not going back. I said, I'm going to burn this goddamn dock, and my ship is going but one way, right? Hook or crook, goddamn it. If I, die in the waters, and so be it. And
what does hook crook mean?
Oh, that's a Chicago thing. It's meaning make it or break it, baby.
Okay.
Hook or fucking crook, baby. You know what I mean? We're going to make it to this point, right? There's no alternative, right? I'm not building in a plan B on this deal. So I end up getting it wasn't a big tattoo, but at the time in like 2006, like tattoos was like taboo. And so I worked in a very corporate, I used to do IT. And so working for the C-suite, doing all their networking stuff. And so I knew if getting this tattoo, I wouldn't be able to get, at least in my mind, I couldn't get back in there. So I'm like, God damn it, put a big old tattoo right here, right? And so that was my deal, like, okay, either, you ain't going to be able to go back, to what your life was. And so that was my way of kind of mentally burning that dock to only go one way, no plan B.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you said, let me get this damn tattoo. So if I wear a short sleeve collared shirt,
exactly,
they will kick me out of this place.
Exactly. I got to go explain. We'll see what happened was.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. So tell me a little bit about Chicago. You keep on mentioning Chicago. It sounds like it's near and dear to your heart.
Oh my God, Chicago, sweet home Chicago, man. It's,
born and raised?
Yeah, born and raised, South Side, Chicago.
Chicago has a bad rap.
Yeah, big time. Chirac.
Yeah.
It's like Iraq, Chirac.
So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, what kind of people you were hanging around with as you grew up.
Yeah.
Maybe through your high school years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I was a nerd musician. I have an older brother. He used to, he would hang in the streets. He would do the streets things. But for myself, I was not a straight A student or anything like that, but mainly I was into music. I played drums. And so I was just enamored with music. I don't know if you remember like the Culture Club, Prince, Bruce Springsteen, that whole 80s era. I had the Michael Jackson jacket on, you know what I mean? I had a band that we used to play. And so that was my deal. I always lived in this dream world, beyond my environment. Although there's gangs fighting and killing and all this stuff around me, I think I was fortunate enough to know that I was not of that environment. I didn't want to become a product of that environment. And so I stayed on a straight and narrow. Knock on wood, I didn't become one of the 1 in 3, of African Americans, brush with the law, besides like speeding tickets or whatever. And so it was, and it was Chicago. Beyond that, I mean, I love Chicago, but it was, what I found also in hindsight after moving around a little bit is it's very segregated. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was highly racial. It was like some shit that you would think would be in the 70s and the 60s. And so me, I'm part of what they call Generation X. And so coming up through that was a little challenging. I went to schools where it's predominantly like all white. And so it was a whole thing of me trying to understand my identity, right, in terms of my block, how that looked and what the people were doing versus the schools that I was going to and the people I was surrounded. So it was really hard to try to find that model, so to speak, of like, man, how do I move around in this world, right? And what's my true north? And so not really having good examples, within my immediate like environment. It was always someone on TV I would project to, like, I was mentioning if it was Steve Jobs or whatever. And so that became kind of my deal. Like, man, I want to do something great in this life. I want to, I want to be beyond what my block has taught me. So, but on the same token, Chicago is home of so much innovation. I mean, I jokingly say about celebrities of, Michael Jordan, Oprah, even the most infamous Farrakhan. He's a big religious from the Nation of Islam. I mean, these people literally stayed around my block as I grew up. Obama and Farrakhan was actually within my neighborhood, right? So it was funny to see as I got older, black president coming through my hood with, 20 motorcades and people on the back with shotguns. It was such a surreal thing to, go from having one, seeing one plight of, neighborhood to now this, first president, type of deal. So very awe-inspiring. I mean, they're one of the, that's how I got my start. I think the city of Chicago put me on in terms of like a first kind of major contract, working with Chicago Police Department and all of that. So much love. I have all my family still back there. And I still argue that it will be probably the number one city in about 10 years because of its location, it being in the Midwest, its infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Once we get the crime thing right, we can't do anything about the weather, but let's just say, Texas burn up, if it's climate change and Florida floods.
Jesus Christ, this is apocalypse now. He said if Texas burns up and Florida floods.
That's what the climate people say. I don't know. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'll be ready. I'll go back home. I think everybody's going to flood to Chicago because the cost of living there is great. And like I say, you're right in the middle of the country where you can move around. And, so I pray we get the crime, the safety thing under control, and maybe about 10 years, see it flourish. So.
How often do you go back home? I know you said your family's over there.
Yeah, I just was back for the holidays, and unfortunately, that's the deal. I can't stay there too long, man. I really can't.
It's cold?
That and just, I guess the evolution, because my wife and I, we never had Florida on our radar. We thought we moved to California because of the tech thing that we do. But post-COVID, we were having our daughter, who's 1 now, and we were like, man, let's check out Florida. Came down here and absolutely freaking loved it, man. I think where everybody's from New York, Chicago, Cali, everybody's coming to Florida. I mean, it's such a gem comparatively, what the pandemic has shown us, with these major cities, New York, LA, Chicago. So, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that I guess in high school it was a predominantly white school.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that part of your life in terms of number one, you're not a small black dude, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, you're a big dude who could defend yourself.
Yes,
if somebody was messing with you, you're an intimidating figure. So that solves that.
But see, that's the deal. Back then, there was potentially, to be real honest, there was this inferiority complex that I seen that blacks had in Chicago when you're around other, when you're around, like, say, people of other colors. Mm-hmm. And because they seem to have had a superiority, like, you don't know what I know, whatever the case may be. So whether it was through policing or through just your interaction, like, who the fuck are you doing? Like, looking at you like you're an alien, right? Like, I think Chris Rock said a joke in one of his stand-up things. Like, he said, "There's a white cripple boy right now watching me, saying like, shit, I wouldn't trade places with this black ass." And he said, "And I'm rich, right?" And he like, "And I'm rich, right?" And this guy still would not
crippled white in a
exactly,
chair and he won't trade his
exactly. Like, no, I'm good. I'll do this fucking cripple thing, man. I'm good, right? And so I think if you ask a lot of, brothers or sisters that's in major cities, because Florida, that's the one thing I love about Florida. I mean, the infusion you guys don't see is the color. It's not that thing, right? You see it everywhere.
This
right?
is why it trips me out. It's funny. Yeah. It's funny that you just said that because I had this guy named Daryl Stingley, who's a professional parkour athlete who sat right there in that chair where you were. Mm-hmm. And we were having this similar conversation, and he's black.
Yes. And
I said to him, somewhere along the lines of, does it when you came in, you sat down until you started talking about color. I didn't really see color, but it's also because of my upbringing, because of the culture down here, because a lot of Cubans are Afro-Cubans, and we don't even, at least my generation, we don't see color like that.
Yes.
But you do see it in other parts of the United States. But I guess my argument to him was, if we keep on emphasizing this thing about color, and Black pride and putting emphasis on Black-owned business, are we doing ourselves a disservice because we're actually putting emphasis back on the color?
Yes.
So yeah, I guess I'll ask you the same
Yeah.
thing. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, because the balance of power or optics has been so skewed to an extreme, it's important for you to just say, it's just like if, your body, if your arm has been very not being paid attention to, pain is that trigger to tell you, yo, motherfucker, I'm over here, right? So I think we should hopefully get at a place where it equalizes out. But depending on who you talk to, I mean, everyone's reality is whatever they're perceived.
Yeah.
And so, I don't push on it as much, especially coming down here, but seeing it as like neutral, like, oh man, I'm cool now, and I got the shit off my back now. Right. But and I think I heard Jesse mention that too, is, maybe, I don't know if it was here, like when he crosses, people cross the street when they see him.
Yeah.
They see big Black dude, and in Chicago is the same deal, like, you walking, but you suspect to everybody, right? And it's like, oh shit, so you try to make yourself not seem as intimidating, move around, or and it's just not. You're always aware of your color, so it's not that you're reminding yourself of your color; it's your environment that's always reminding yourself of your color. And so it's important for you to, to affirm to yourself who you are and to the world of who you are, and be, I guess, unashamedly unapologetic about, claiming that because you feel like the forces are coming to try to tell you one thing, that people are putting energy to say you're this,
and
right?
you got to push back.
Yes. And like I say, it could be perceived, everybody's reality is their perception. The person could be looking at, it's weird because I had a little bit of that, come to think about it, when I came down here. People were looking at me. And at the longest time, I thought it was from a Chicago thing, like, what the fuck? You on a roll? What's up? But, and then I finally talked to one of the waitresses, because it was a restaurant we used to go to in our place, and you're like, oh man, they thought you were this football or basketball player or whatever, right? They were looking at you in as an admiration.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking they looking at they want some of this, right?
I don't think anybody wants any of it.
Right. So, but that's the Chicago mentality, and it's so weird when I see people come in from New York or Chicago. We have an edge to us, unfortunately, and it's just from our environment. But once we get here, I think it's been about it's like going on vacation. Sometimes it takes you 2 or 3 days to kind of settle.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. It's like nobody trying to fight you, man.
Yeah, man.
Right? It's okay.
In fact, when you and I started talking in the gym, first thing, usually I'll ask you, I was like, yo, how tall are you, man?
Yeah.
How much you weigh? Because I think about, I watch UFC all the time. We've had conversations about it.
Yes,
so I'm just trying to size up fighters and see, like, damn, this guy's a heavyweight.
I got to take him out.
Yeah. I was like, nah, I can't take him out.
Yes,
and I don't own a gun, so
Yes.
I'm in trouble. So
Yes.
but I could run.
Yes.
I could run.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Man, I don't even know where else to go with this.
Yeah.
It's so cool just to sit down and conversate a little. In terms of, I guess, besides anything else eventful that happened in your upbringing that influenced or impacted your life?
Let's see.
Like if you think about high school.
High school, I mean, it was so weird. I always left with my other friends like, shit, man, high school is such a weird time for you.
So weird.
Right? Anybody from your high school that you run into, it's like they immediately put you in like shit. Oh, that's Ken, whatever. And it's not normally it's not flattering. So high school, I think it was, I mean, I was in band. I was doing my band stuff, trying to be the next Ready for the World of the Beatles, man. I just wanted to do my music.
So when you go back to the block and you see some of these friends that you grew up with, maybe some of them that were on the wrong side of the block, right? They were up to no good, but they were still friends of yours.
Yes.
When you do see them and you engage with them, how do those conversations go? Is it a little off-putting or?
Yeah, it's so weird because
you can still have love for them, but sometimes you can't relate.
Yeah, our conversation only goes so far is what I find. So either I find myself, this conversation is gonna be about back in the days for the next 5 hours.
Yeah.
And nothing new to add to it. So I just have to make that conscious decision, like, okay, we're just gonna roll with the back of the days.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about the good old days.
And that's cool too.
Yes.
That's cool. It's cool to reflect and just because then afterwards you can walk away and say, "Wow, like I've come a long way."
Right. And that's their present. Their back in the days is still their present. Like, yeah, man, I'm still doing it. Right. It's like, okay.
Do you? I guess, do you think that you have reached quote unquote success?
Absolutely not. I mean, no, that's the deal. But that's the thing I think we may have talked about too. I want to practice more gratitude. So
No, but your initial response was absolutely not. So roll with that.
Yeah, that's the deal. So for business, no, man, and that's the deal. It's a lot of guys that I've grown up with starting business, and they're billionaires now, and I'm like, God. And I was just telling my wife that, and she said, "Don't be mad at it. It's just like, like how can I not be? They're billionaires, right? They started when I started, and it was zero, and so for a financial thing, that's one thing in terms, and it's not really the financial for myself more than to say your potential, living your potential, and so that makes me evaluate like, are you living truly your potential, and so." That's the thing that I'm not settled with, because if I were to croak out, it's like, what would 10 years from now, what would Ken tell himself now? Would he be like, oh man, you knocked that out for us, bro? Or would you be like, nah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate.
Right. 100%. So I'm making it my duty, and that's the thing I know Grant says, success is your duty. Success does become your, because otherwise you're actually being selfish, because if you have the potential to really do something massive and you're not doing it, then shame on you. You're selfish, because there's so many people you can help. Even if it's not even about the money for yourself, but it's about the money that you can do to even help other people, or that dent you can make into the universe. And so I really take that to heart, right? Like, so when I say I never, and so that's the deal. And I don't believe success is a state. I think similar to happiness, it's always a pursuit. I don't think a person ever like just hit a happy and just be happy.
Yeah.
Right. State.
Yeah.
It's always in pursuit, right?
Yeah.
Throughout that journey. So your deal is to kind of minimize and up the happiness and reduce the unhappiness or whatever. And so I think the same way with success. I don't think it's a state. There's no money, like monetary value that I say, okay, I'll be successful when I make or business or whatever. I think it's a constant evolution of potential that I just want to live up to. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm just asking you a lot of questions.
Yeah, let's go.
I asked myself.
Yeah.
Would you say that you are proud of what you've accomplished?
Yeah, even pride, I have a word with that.
Yeah.
But I guess in a state, and that's part of my marketing deal, right, is because we've done a lot of fancy things, but I don't promote it. And people like, hey, you done this? And like, yeah. I was like, Mug, I'd be all over that shit. Like, man, right? This is what I did. And so I guess, unfortunate point that I need to be more prideful, I guess, in a way, at least be proud of the accomplishments that I've done, because I think that's what I was saying, going back to my gratitude thing of just being grateful, not always just being in pursuit, because you live missing in the present. And so always thinking about what's the next thing, you miss the present. And I think my kids, because, I had my 1 year of 50 years old. And so what she's showing me is like, I just, you got to be in the present, bro. Right. It's like, shit, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. So I find that, being present and grateful for what you have is, vitally important. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, when they ask me, or I've asked myself about, or actually my girlfriend asks me all the time, are you proud of yourself? Mm-hmm. Or do you feel successful? And my response is always, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yes.
But I think it sort of fuels my fire to think that I haven't reached it yet, because I think it goes back to what you were just saying is, I feel like my potential is so much higher.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And something else you said that resonated with me was the fact that it is selfish if I don't reach that potential, because I know I'm the type of person who tries to help the people who are around me.
Yes.
I want to inspire the people who are around me. I want to see the people around me just do better. I want to be the catapult or the guy who's helping them get over the wall and just launches them over.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yes.
Like in the gym, if you see somebody doing a heavy lift or something, I'll go.
I'm the same way.
I'll go next to him and be like, "Hey, hold on, drop your hips a little bit."
Yeah, you help
and sometimes,
me that, yeah,
and it's just in me to just go and say, "Hey, like, I see what you're doing. You're doing it looks good, but you got to drop your hips a little bit. You're putting too much stress on your lower back.
Yeah.
And then once you do that lift, all right, kick your hips up. You're good. Amazing. And I'm applauding them.
Celebrating
and
them.
I'm fist bumping them, giving them a high five. And it's the same way in the office, in life. Like, hey, Vanessa wants to go to nursing school.
Right.
Hey, hold on, Vanessa. Let me talk to you about this. What courses are you taking this semester? All right, you might not want to stack those courses together. That's tough. You're going to need this course to carry on over here as you continue your schooling. So maybe you should do it this way. Now, Vanessa could look at me and be like, yeah, whatever. I'll do it however I want. Yeah. But I know I'm at least trying to impart on her, like, my knowledge, my experience, my wisdom to try to help her in her future.
Yes.
And I think if I don't do all these things to live up to my potential, then I will be selfish because I won't be able to help more people.
Yeah.
And look, I know my life is nothing but a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
But that drop, I want that ripple that comes out from that drop to be as big as possible.
Absolutely. Yes,
and for some people, it's a tsunami. Cool, good for you. But if mine is just a ripple and it affects if it touches anybody around me, and then those people put their drop in the ocean, poof, and that ripple keeps on expanding, I got chills right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's to me, that's what life is about.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the exact meaning of life is, but I could tell you that's what it is for me. Is try to impact those people that are just in my proximity. And if I could make that drop a little bit bigger to affect some more people, then I've done all I can.
Your life. Yeah. You've done what you were here for, man. And that's so beautiful because, like you say, your heart is in the right place. And so, therefore, the universe deserves to give you everything you need to make that possible, as opposed to, like, shit, I just want to do this and be on my own and be truly selfish.
Yeah.
Right? But, your deal is, like you said, so you understand the continuum. And so, man, you got the universe behind your back, because I think, again, that's the purpose. I think is that we live to connect with others and to make them better. My hope, like you mentioned, with any relationship that I ever have with anybody is that, hopefully they're better to know me than not, So it's like, I don't like, well, shit, I'm, worse off because I didn't met this guy, Kenn. Right. So even if we don't get along or whatever, face to face, we'll see ideology, but maybe there's something I challenge that at least make you better that you go on and do. And so that's always my hope when I come into contact. And so, like you say, with that kind of deal, I think we should have the universe behind us. We just then have to identify what it is our true potential and just go for it. You know what I mean? We have to really, I think, sit with in silence. What is that potential in your wildest dreams? What would that be? And then get after it. Because another thing, as far as entrepreneurs, the thing that I was happy to hear, 40s and 50s are their most years where people catapult. I think, it wasn't Albert Einstein. It was somebody in his 40s, 50s, great inventor. It's like he took off 40 in his 50s. So these are the years that we really should be, because the 20s, 30s, you're still trying to figure this stuff out. Yeah. But 40s and 50s, you're like, okay.
I just turned 40, so I'm ready.
Oh, yes, sir. There you go.
40 on the dot.
There you go. So, yeah.
I was going to say something else and I don't remember right now. It was about, what was it about? I'm not even sure. But we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it with that. Okay. Kenn, I want to say thank you, man.
Thank you, bro.
I want to say
appreciate you, bro.
It's just cool to have you to sit to talk a little bit. Yes. To impart some of your knowledge, and yeah, I feel like I definitely gained from this conversation. I hope you gained a little something too, and I hope some of the viewers will gain from it as well. Tell them where they could find you. I know that you've been trying to grow your social.
Yeah,
you've talked to me about it. You want to grow your social. You're becoming more active.
Trying to.
Hey, listen, I started. Look, if you look back on my feed, on my Instagram, and you scroll up to June 2021 and above, it's nothing but my photography that you see here on The Office. It was nothing of me talking. It was my face was nowhere on it. I was afraid to be in front of the camera, or not afraid. I just didn't see the value in it. And as soon as I started, once it was almost a year into this business launching, June 2021, where I started saying, oh, I got to talk more. I just got to put myself out there. It doesn't need to be all this production. A lot of it is just me in my car like this. Wow. And people will begin to resonate with what you're saying. As long as it might be something dumb that you feel is insignificant. Today I put up a post about a weighted, because I was talking about this morning the fact that it was a real battle to get out of bed to get to the gym this morning.
Yeah.
And I call it the battle of the sheets.
Okay.
Right? The battle of the sheets is, when you feel real comfortable, the sheets weigh real heavy.
Yeah.
So I said something along the lines of, the sheets were whispering to me, just stay here, blah, blah, blah. And then some girl commented and was like, oh, if your sheets talk to me, where can I get the link? But then I followed up with that. I said, well, here, these are actual weighted blankets. Let me educate you guys real quick on what a weighted blanket is. And so I put up the Amazon post. And I said, this is a weighted blanket. And actually, some people use it. It's a 20-pound blanket.
Wow.
20 pounds. And I put some facts. So weighted blankets can help you feel calm. It's also used for people who have some sensory disorders. Some people that are on the spectrum, that it also benefits them. People with severe anxiety and you have trouble falling asleep. There's something about a weighted blanket that just helps you feel grounded and helps people fall asleep and feel rested.
Okay.
Dude, all of a sudden, I had a bunch of people messaging me, hey, where can I get a weighted blanket?
What?
And I'm like, I thought this was like a stupid fact that nobody would care about. And all of a sudden, it's getting activity.
Engagements, right.
It's getting engagement. So it's just so interesting. Knowledge that you hold day to day that you might find insignificant.
Right.
You don't think it's a big deal.
Yes.
Maybe things that you do every day at work. Right? You put that out there. You told me, Delta.
Yes.
So Kenn told me in the jacuzzi. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back into the podcast, but Kenn told me in the jacuzzi one day, just talking. He said, I use Delta when I'm evaluating my employees. And so Delta is an acronym that stands for dependability, education and experience, leadership, teamwork. Wait, hold on, don't tell me. And accountability. Accountability?
Attitude.
Oh, attitude.
Yes.
That's what it was. Attitude.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about this. Oh, wait, is this employee dependable? Yes. Okay. Yes or no? Are they late? Like, when you ask them to do something, do they do it? Do they follow through? Do they report back to you and let you know it's done? Education. Do they have the proper education for this role or task? Do they have the experience to be successful at this? If not, can we help them get it? Right. Leadership. What are their leadership qualities? How do they lead when they're in front of a team? What is their leadership style? Are they Hitler? Or do they try to, is there some more synchrony in terms of them engaging everybody and getting everybody involved? How's their teamwork? Same thing. Are they, as well as they lead, can they also be part of a team? And then the last one, attitude, which you cannot coach, is attitude. Yes. How do they arrive at work? How do they engage? What kind of attitude do they share with others? What kind of energy are they bringing to the office atmosphere? You told me that, and it stuck with me. This has been probably 6, maybe 8 months ago. When we first met. And it stuck from that day. I got here and I wrote it down on the board, and I was like, this is important. Like, I got to read more into this. I got to look more into this. Yeah. And now this is part of my yearly assessment tool that I use as well. I looked into it. I got a scoring system for it. And so it came from you.
Get out of here.
So these little things that you have day to day that you use, that that you think are insignificant, just put them out there.
Okay.
A lot of times they're going to fall flat. Yeah. Right?
Don't take it personal. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And then don't only do it on Instagram. I'm starting to get active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has good traction too, especially for people like yourself who are CEOs. Yeah. Tell your story. Yeah. Tell your story about the first time you failed in business. Tell your story about anything, shortcomings in life. I posted a picture the other day of 2017, and it was just a mattress on the floor of my apartment here in the Gables. Okay. Just a mattress, because that's where I started all over. Wow. My life started again. I hear you. And people were just right. Some of them didn't even comment directly on the picture. They wrote to me. Okay. I rebuilt my life in this year. This is what my apartment looked like. And they showed me the same picture of a mattress on the floor. So these little life events, people want to know who you are. Yes. People want to understand you better. So we can't all be Grant. Yeah. Right? Because Grant is flashy. He has a great voice. And he's a billionaire. So it's different, right? He has different clout. We kind of have to show like where we come from. Use being a black man growing up in high school in an all-white school and what that was like. People will gravitate towards you because they understand you. They understand where you're coming from and they can relate. And it might be a Cuban guy who came here to Miami, or maybe not to Miami, a Cuban guy who moved to, let's say, New York. My mom was Cuban, moved to Maryland, didn't speak any English whatsoever, and is in an all-white school. She's the only Hispanic girl that didn't understand what the hell was going on around her.
Right.
So it's similar but different, but still it's relatable. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's relatable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's almost like you're the alien in the room because you look different and you come from somewhere else.
Yes.
So, I mean, if there's anything I want to tell you is that, is use those things. And I'm not saying, look, I only got 8,000 followers. It's not that many. But those 8,000 followers have changed my business and changed my life because those people are part of the word of mouth, right? Those people are what helps me talk about my business because they might not like, they might not comment, they might just view. There's a lot of people who just look.
Yeah.
But then when they're outside and somebody is depressed or going through it, having some sort of mental health issue, they'll be like, oh, I follow a guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I know a guy. Actually, I just went to a pool party this weekend. And the girl goes, I told her, I was like, oh, I have a mental health practice. She's like, oh, I follow a guy that has a mental health practice. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. What's his name? And she starts looking him up. I was like, it's not this idiot, Dr. Adrian Mesa. Like I said it messing around. She's like, that is him. I was like, oh, that's me.
Get out of here. Wow.
So it's just a matter of just putting yourself out there, being consistent, being transparent, telling your story, and then telling your accolades, man.
Okay.
If you've worked with some big companies and it's gonna help you.
Yeah.
It's not bragging.
Yeah.
These are facts. This is objective.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's been, like I say, my challenge because, But no, this is great advice, man. We're actually this year again. All this is like we got to get the hell out of obscurity. So it's balls to the wall.
In fact, I haven't even run background checks on my employees.
Oh wow!
Besides the clinicians.
Okay, because it's required.
Yeah. Have we? I have
Oh.
to ask Jan. I'm thinking about the office manager. I'm like, do we use some sort of site? I have to ask her.
Yeah, man. You use me, man. I can hook you up.
Yeah.
I know guys.
There you go.
Get it taken care of for you. Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, thanks again. Sorry, I went off there for a second,
No,
guys.
that's
but
all right. This is good feedback, man. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, man. And thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking your time. And hopefully we'll catch a fight soon, man.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
All right.
Oh, yes, sir.
Hey,
right,
Ken.
bro.
Pleasure,
Appreciate you, man. Yes, sir.
Let me lock this out.
Peace. In a minute. Microphone check 1, 2.
Oh man, that was fun, man.